Welcome back to ThimbleberryU. I am John Jaggay, joined as always by Amy Walls from Thimbleberry Financial. Hello, Amy.
Hi, Jag.
So today, if you work in tech, or you love someone who does, you probably know how intense that tech pace can be. The pressure, expectations, the constant pings, the race to keep up. For many people, that pace eventually hits a point where energy runs out faster than it refills. Today, we're looking at something we don't talk about often enough: burnout. It's emotional, but it is also financial. Money can either add to the strain or help you reclaim your time, your energy, and your sense of control. Amy's here to walk us through what burnout actually looks like in the tech field, why it shows up the way it does, and how financial planning can become part of the solution instead of another stressor. Amy, let's start right there. Why is burnout in tech different than burnout in other fields?
Tech has a unique mix of expectations, rewards, and uncertainty that can put people on a treadmill that they never meant to be on. And here's what I see in my conversations with clients. Many roles carry an unspoken expectation of being available all the time. Even if no one says it directly, people feel like they need to respond quickly, answer late messages, and stay alert.
Yes.
So also keep in mind, I have a husband who works in tech.
Right.
And he may be up at 5 a.m. and he may be on a call at 10 p.m.
Right.
At times. So I know that is normal for our clients too. Compensation can be unpredictable. RSUs, bonuses, or promotions that come quickly until they slow down adds a layer of financial pressure that is always running in the background.
Yes.
It's just this loop. The career ladder moves fast in tech. Many people change roles or companies every couple of years. And when growth slows, it can feel like falling behind even when the work is strong.
Mm-hmm.
I'd also say that lifestyle inflation becomes a coping tool.
Okay.
Convenient spending is not indulgence. It's often survival when there's no energy left at the end of the day. And job insecurity, especially right now in tech, is real. And even really high performers are aware of how quickly teams can shift, and that uncertainty wears on people long before anything actually changes.
Yeah.
So, Jag, quick little tidbit from a client conversation, right? And this goes to one of the points I just talked about. I was having a conversation a while back with a client who was acknowledging how burnt out he was feeling.
Yeah.
And he shared that he didn't realize how burnt out he was until he was going through our annual planning updates process. And he looked at his spending and really his credit card statement and recognized how often he just kept ordering things.
Huh.
He wasn't splurging. He was coping. And really, by going through that exercise, he recognized that something deeper was happening. And that was burnout. So burnout in tech is rarely about one thing, I think, is an important takeaway. It's about a combination of things, vigilance, speed, and unpredictability most often.
Retail therapy has been a coping mechanism for all of us at some point.
Yes.
And that really resonates, Amy. It leads into a question we hear often. People say, I make good money, but I still feel stretched. What happens to those money habits when somebody's burnt out? I feel like we're getting into this already.
Yeah. Well, burnout changes how your brain handles decisions. When you're overloaded, it becomes harder to think clearly, plan ahead, or make choices that feel intentional. Stress shrinks mental bandwidth.
Yeah.
Research found that heavy cognitive loads can reduce decision-making capacity by the equivalent of about 13 IQ points.
Wow.
That's not about intelligence. That's about depletion.
And in my case, I don't have many points to spare.
I don't think that's true, but okay. And really what we're saying here is decision fatigue takes over. After you've made decisions all day long, sometimes even into the night, even simple choices feel heavy. I mean, how hard is it figuring out what you're going to eat for dinner if you didn't plan it ahead? Whether to work out or whether to cook or order in? Those questions all start to feel like too much.
You hear stories of veterans coming back from overseas, and they had a very simple life, very regimented. Everything was assigned to them to the minute, to the hour. They go into the grocery store, they walk into the cereal aisle, and they're overwhelmed because of the need to make more decisions. And those tiny decisions, we make hundreds of them a day, and it really taxes the brain as a muscle.
Absolutely. And that happens in so many aspects of our life. My husband and I have a story that we periodically bring up to each other about the toothpaste aisle at the grocery store. Or when I first saw a peanut butter Snickers bar, 2 hours later, I was still talking about why do we need all these choices and options? I wasn't even looking for a Snickers bar. It was just too much. So yes, it is a problem.
Have you tried the peanut butter Snickers bar, though? I mean, really?
I haven't.
You should.
Maybe. Basically, this decision fatigue, the important thing here when we bring it back to financial is it leads to more automatic spending. Obviously, automatic is a word that somebody could object to, right? Like, why being tired, is it an automatic spend? You have choice. People aren't trying to indulge themselves. They're just trying to make one less decision. And so they spend as a result. And when this happens, long-term planning gets pushed aside. When your brain is tired, the future feels like a luxury problem rather than, future self being your best friend.
Right.
Even when you have strong income, that sense of control is lower. And control is what reduces stress, not income alone.
Mm-hmm.
So burnout doesn't only show up as exhaustion. Sometimes it shows up as a pattern of small decisions that feel like the only way you can get through the day. And the antidotes are clarity and control, or at least two of the main ones are. And that's where financial planning can make a big, meaningful difference.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. I know you call this the burnout blueprint. How can financial planning support someone's mental and emotional well-being? We'll start with your first pillar.
Yeah, the first pillar, and I'm going to use a word that I've used frequently in this, podcast, is intentional. Pillar 1 is intentional spending. And the heart of it is understanding the decision fatigue we just talked about. Like we said, it happens when you've made so many choices during the day that your brain is simply out of capacity to make small decisions. And tech work comes with a constant flow of decisions. Technical decisions, people decisions, polarizing decisions, micro decisions all day long. So when your brain is tired, the easiest option wins. It's that simple. And that's why convenient spending becomes the default, even when it does not restore your energy. A way that I cope is Instagram sometimes, right? It doesn't restore my energy. I was sitting last night trying to figure out how to replenish my energy before I went into a jiu-jitsu class. And I was like, the last thing I need to be doing right now is scrolling Instagram after my day. But in this case, you can start by separating spending into two categories. One is energy-saving spending, like cleaning help, meal support, or therapy, which all reduce mental load.
Yeah.
The other is your stress coping spending, which often shows that you need a break rather than another purchase. Okay, both types show you something important. They give you a lesson. They reveal where life needs more structure or support. And once you have that, then you can review what can I outsource. And those small shifts often make a big difference. So this probably doesn't sound like a big example for our listeners, but we had a client who was trying to tackle everything themselves. They'd said, I don't need to spend money on housekeeping, grocery prep. Like, I keep my life simple on purpose. And they really felt like they kept their life simple. But they outsourced house cleaning and grocery prep, and they got back about 5 hours a week.
Yeah.
They didn't use that time to work more. That would have been easy to do, which is often what you hear in hiring, like cleaners or that sort of thing. They used it to breathe.
Yeah.
And that reduction in decision fatigue for them changed the way they approach money, their work, their health. So intentional spending is not about cutting back necessarily. It's about directing money towards the choices that give you back what you need. And if you're burnt out, that's time, energy, and clarity.
Time is the only finite resource, and this all makes a lot of sense. When your brain's tired, your spending becomes reflexive instead of restorative. It's that retail therapy I mentioned a minute ago. We'll get into pillar 2 here, Amy. That is career pacing? What does that look like inside the financial plan?
Yeah. Career pacing is really supported by the structure of money. And this is where financial clarity really translates to emotional relief, if you will. So many people in tech feel tied to the next promotion or vesting cycle, even when they're exhausted, right? I've got to get to this next big RSU payout. Financial planning can give people room to breathe and make choices based on health rather than fear. So, first of all, we can start with modeling what enough looks like. You know, Jag, from our conversations, we aren't growing money to grow money with our clients. We're growing money for the purpose, which is what they want their lives to look like. So this isn't theory. It's based on your life and your goals. And seeing that your long-term security does not always depend on the next level, the next level on the ladder, often brings some pretty noticeable relief. So we look then at equity compensation planning. Let's use RSUs as an example, and creating predictable income from variable compensation significantly lower stress.
Yeah.
Right? What does it mean if you give up these RSUs because you're in a place where you need to take this sabbatical and make a shift to a different organization? We can figure that out. We also explore pacing. What happens if you slow down, shift roles, or change companies? What happens if you take that sabbatical? We've, talked in prior episodes about how we often help our tech clients build in sabbaticals every, 5 years or so. And through all this work, what we found is when you see the numbers clearly, decisions feel less overwhelming and more grounded.
Yeah.
A real life practical story around this is someone we work with was convinced, absolutely, I need to take these promotions. And they felt their energy running low. They were on track financially. No concerns there.
Yeah.
But they made a lateral move to a healthier team. And within months, they were like, my sleep, my clarity improved. I feel so much better. Really, in our conversations, what it seemed is their decisions were no longer coming from a place of pressure. And they actually realized they prefer being lower on the ladder. I thought that was so powerful when they shared that. So money can create options that protect your well-being.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive, but it really works sometimes. And that brings us really to our third pillar, which is downtime. A lot of people struggle to take real breaks. How does money support rest?
Gosh, this is one of the most powerful tools for preventing burnout. And yes, I'm pot calling kettle black here. Rest needs structure in order to work. Not just the intention to rest, but the ability to step away without fear. That's so important, to do it without fear. Basically, a solid buffer gives your brain permission to disconnect, right? And when you know you are covered financially, you can actually rest. PTO, sabbaticals, whatever it is, can be mapped into a financial rhythm so time off fits naturally into your plan. We'll talk about microbreaks. A day, an afternoon, a long weekend can make a big difference. Yes, this sounds like life coaching, but financial planning is getting what you want out of life. And so if we don't build the patterns and habits, it's not going to happen later, and you're not going to have as clear of a thought process as to what you actually want.
Mm-hmm.
We also look at benefits that may go unused. So a lot of employers do have therapy sessions or wellness stipends, coaching, or mental health programs that can reduce out-of-pocket stress and support recovery. There's definitely options here in figuring out what downtime looks like for you. My husband used to recognize I needed downtime. We tweaked this. And he'd say, okay, well, on Thursday evening at 5:00, I will take the kids out until 6:30, and you get an hour and a half on Thursday evenings to yourself.
Okay.
That to me wasn't downtime, because I felt like I had this very tight window His intention was great, but this little tight window kept me stressed for the entire hour and a half.
I have to get these things done in the hour and a half when nobody else is here kind of thing?
Yes, or I can go somewhere, but then I have to be back. Like I had a firm deadline.
Oh, okay.
And he didn't mean it that way, but being given this like specific hour and a half window every week made me feel boxed in even more. So we had to find other ways to work around that.
You talk about planning this downtime. To me, it's similar as planning savings. Like if you don't budget a certain number out of your paycheck to go to savings every pay period, you're just not going to do it. If you don't plan this downtime, it's going to fall by the wayside as your schedule fills in.
Oh, Jag, absolutely.
Okay, so let me bring it back to the beginning here, Amy. For people listening who are wondering whether burnout's affecting their financial decisions, what's a good way to sort of self-check ourselves?
Yeah, and obviously I am not a therapist, but I think there's some easy lists that we could probably all agree to. Hopefully our listeners can reflect on this quietly, as they listen, or loudly, either way. Am I spending on convenience because I am exhausted, not because it helps?
Mm.
Do I feel guilty taking time off even when I need it? Oh gosh, I'm not doing well on this right now. Do financial decisions feel heavier than they used to?
Yeah.
When was the last time I took a break that restored my energy? Do I feel like I am always behind on my own life? These questions aren't about judging yourself, right? They're about noticing, and noticing is the first step towards inviting and accepting change.
You were a little self-critical there, Amy. If one of our listeners or viewers hears themselves in those questions, what can they start doing today?
Yeah, they can start with simple steps and let that build some momentum. Choose one area of spending that is tied to stress and look at what might give you more energy instead. Set one boundary at work this week that protects your time or attention. Use one benefit you have through your employment this month that supports your well-being. Look at your financial projections, if you have those, or work with someone who can help you understand what enough looks like.
Mm.
And give yourself one microbreak. An afternoon, a long walk, or a quiet morning can really help with a reset. And all those small steps really create change that can impact life.
Yeah, those are really good specific tips. As we wrap up, let's zoom back out. Can you leave our listeners with a few key takeaways here?
Well, hopefully they absorbed it all, but no, really.
Amy, they're burnt out. How can they absorb anything?
Exactly. So I think, burnout, it's not a personal failing. Number one, it's a mismatch between your demands and your energy.
I like that.
At any point in time. Money can create pressure or relief. It depends on how you use it. Small, intentional choices around spending, pacing, and rest make a meaningful difference. And you deserve a financial plan that supports your well-being, not just your output.
I like it. Amy, to find out more about your team at Thimbleberry Financial and how you can help our listeners with this or anything related to their financial future, how do they best find you?
Yeah, they can find us online at ThimbleberryFinancial.com, or they can give us a call at 503-610-6510.
All right. If you thought this podcast resonated with you or know somebody else it might resonate with, please feel free to share it with them. We're now on video on YouTube as well as an audio podcast as well. Amy, good stuff. We'll talk again in a couple weeks.
Sounds great, Jag. Thanks.
Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Thimbleberry Financial are not affiliated. Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Thimbleberry Financial are not affiliated.